Hello, and welcome to my 589 final project presentation, Teaching Self-Defense to Learners via the Art of Krav Maga. My learner task and learning description, I will be teaching young adult women and late adulthood women. For the young adult women, we will be on a college campus setting, and for the late adulthood women, it will be in a Krav Maga training center. I will teach my learners 3 basic self-defense moves that vary depending on the life stage they are in. For young adults, it will be how to respond to being choked, being grabbed from behind, and responding to a gun threat. For the late adulthood women, it will be how to efficiently attack someone who's in your space with minimal risk of injury, so potentially a throat response, how to defend yourself from a seated position or potentially in a wheelchair, and groin kicks or knees to the groin. Now, because these 3 moves will not protect learners from every situation they could encounter, another portion of the session will focus on what to do when these moves don't suffice. Both of these learner tasks support the final task of increasing learners' confidence in managing their own safety. My specific learning and motivation outcomes are that learners will be able to demonstrate that they can physically execute basic self-defense moves from the practice of Krav Maga, articulate at least 3 common safety best practices beyond the basic self-defense moves, and increase confidence in responding to unsafe situations where self-defense is required. As far as what knowledge is required in order to be successful in this training, my learners will need to know what the definition of a safe situation is. They will also need to know how to actually execute the moves, and then we will spend time defining when not to use these moves based on the level of danger of the particular situation. Let's begin with the Young Adult Learning Training and Assessment Plan. In order to assess my young adults' prior knowledge, I will start with an online registration questionnaire. This will include questions around the participants' experience level with both self-defense and safety training. I can then use this information to properly pair people together in similarly experienced pairs. Once they arrive at the actual training, and I've introduced our learning outcomes for the day, I will put participants into pairs to assess their prior knowledge on the physical self-defense moves. So each pair will be asked to simulate a choke, a grab from behind, and just naturally respond as they would. I will then observe to see what level each participant is at. At this point, they will take a seat, and we will use an application called Kahoot to do an interactive anonymous quiz to assess their prior knowledge of the other safety principles. The last prior knowledge assessment activity is to ask participants to place themselves along a taped line on the floor, with one end indicating extremely confident and the other end indicating not confident at all, to indicate their confidence level and their ability to manage their own safety. At this point, we'll transition into the learning activities, starting with relevant videos. These will be short videos that show successful and unsuccessful safety experiences of other people in young adulthood. This is important to provide similar and credible models in order to develop self-efficacy among our learners. At this point, learners will regroup back into pairs and begin learning the 3 moves. I will start by demonstrating each move in its entirety and then breaking it down into its smallest components. Therefore, the pairs can start with one component, and as they master each part of the move, can add on more until they've mastered the entire move. I will be walking around observing the progress and giving individual feedback as necessary. Once they've mastered the 3 physical moves, we will move into small group discussions. Each small group will receive an index card with a prompt of a situation, and they will then discuss in a group how they would respond to it, whether it's a situation within the workplace or within a personal relationship or just out in public. And then each group will have an opportunity to share both their situation and their solutions. This is an opportunity for them to see what they already know, which will be followed by an interactive lecture to correct any misconceptions on how to respond in certain situations, what is considered a safe situation versus what is not considered a safe situation, etc. At this point in the training, we'll transition to the assessment plan. In order to determine if learners are able to demonstrate the 3 physical moves, I will ask them to get back into their pairs, and each pair will be asked to demonstrate the 3 moves, alternating between playing the role of the victim and the attacker. Then, to assess if learners are able to articulate 3 basic safety principles, we'll use a Jeopardy-style game quiz, and each team must give a rationale for each of their answers in order to earn the point. They can't just select the correct answer. They need to be able to explain why that's the correct answer. And then last, we'll repeat the Likert-style confidence assessment by asking learners to place themselves along the same taped line. And I will take a picture of where each person chooses, or where the group chooses to stand, and then we can compare our end results to our beginning results and see if there is a difference in between the 2 confidence levels. Now let's compare this to the late adulthood training program. Oops. Sorry about that. So we also need to assess our prior knowledge of our late adulthood learners, but as opposed to using an online registration system, there will be a written quiz that they fill out at the beginning of the class to indicate what their knowledge is of the other safety best practices. This will be within a comprehensive participant packet that they will receive that serves a dual purpose. One, it's to keep all of their written handouts together in one place to reduce cognitive overload, so they don't have to think and to support and scaffold their note-taking. And it will also serve as an aid outside of the training in order to help support fading memory capacity. So it'll be both a tool in the classroom and a tool outside of the classroom. The same written quiz will also assess their experience and safety knowledge, as well as include the same Likert-style confidence level questions from the young adult training. After the prior knowledge assessment, we'll begin the actual learning. Different from the young adult structure, we will alternate between learning one move and having a portion of lecture, then learning the second move, then having another portion of lecture, in order to give participants an opportunity to rest. At this phase in their development, there's often some physical decline, and I want to use as much of their energy geared towards learning the actual moves as possible. So we'll start with a frontal attack response, focused on how to get maximum effect without injuring yourself, especially with lower bone densities, and then transition into home entry lecture. This is really relevant to those in late adulthood, as in retirement, a lot more time is spent at home, potentially alone in the house. Then learn some seated self-defense moves, including how to use other objects as potential props, whether this is in a chair or a wheelchair. And for this group, we'll use a lot more padding. This is, again, to accommodate for the lower bone density and the higher risk of injury and the higher effect of injury on learners. We'll then talk about online safety, the benefits of using things online, and then the dangers of things to watch out for, and then transition to our last physical move, groin kick or a knee to the groin, before we discuss financial safety. Part of the financial safety discussion will be to identify 1 or 2 trusted people to share their safety plan with, so that others are aware of the work that they've done. At this point, it'll be time to assess if our learners have achieved the outcomes. In order to assess if they're able to demonstrate the safety moves, we will regroup into pairs as we did with the young adult, having each pair demonstrate the 3 self-defense moves. To assess if they're able to articulate 3 other safety best practices, They will take a written quiz as opposed to small group discussions with open-ended answers instead of multiple choice questions. And then lastly, to assess if their confidence has increased, I will administer the same quiz they took at the beginning with the Likert-style questions, asking them about their confidence levels in their ability to manage their own safety. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this.